Okay, tonight is December the 13th, 2024, and this is the Constitution Call on Friday night. And it looks like we have Mason and Low Tide and myself and Salty Toes, and we invite everybody to come and join us. And we're going to start off with, I guess, Mason, because I don't see Mr. Jim here yet. So, Mason, go ahead and get started and tell us what you want to tell us tonight. Any intel or and just whatever it is you want to tell us. Okay? It's up to you.
Okay, well, um, there's been a lot of interesting information come out, through the different inside groups around the country, around the planet, and I guess that Brunson case has been decided already, according to all the information I'm hearing. So they're. Oh my goodness! Oh no! Oh, oh, that was a. Oh, it was a firecracker. Oh. Anyway.
Oh, my Lord.
Did you guys hear that?
I
Yeah.
did.
Sounded like a cannon. Oh, there goes the spaceship. Oh. Anyway, lots of interesting things happening around the globe. I guess France or Macron has got his comeuppance, and they found a whole big stash of Federal Reserve notes that were delivered by the Federal Reserve to a foreign country somewhere over in Israel. And just some interesting things. I'm still kind of waiting for the World War III scenario. They start blowing up all those 32 buildings that they have been identified. Uh, I guess my biggest curiosity at this point in time is how many of the people that have been listening to all these calls are actually engaged in doing something that would lead to their spiritual development. And the list isn't too long at this point, and I'm not surprised because I already know the number one cause of it is just people are just afraid to deal with this demonic system that most of us have already lived through, and some of us actually have survived. But the time is rapidly approaching when we may find ourselves in a whole different age with a whole different group of like-minded souls who are all only interested in the morals of life, and they all have the abilities and the attributes of being able to get along with their fellow man in an exactly perfect way. And nobody steps on anybody else's rights or toes or creates strife or any of this stuff. Why? Because it just won't be in you. But from all my experiences and all the things I've been shown and led to understand, dealing with the spiritual side of us, if you can't stretch that fear button, if you can't get that thing working in your emotional body and get some neutral zone there, you're going to have some really bad experiences in life that you have no control over. And as far as the control factor is concerned, that's an inherent element that's in everybody. And nobody can say, I don't have it. Because there isn't probably a day goes by in your life that you don't have an experience one way or another, either from your emotions, a mind issue, something in your physical life that you're having to face or deal with or you don't want to deal with. And those are all the things that you can't take with you. That this lower world stuff, the astral, causal, mental, and the etheric, they don't move into the higher worlds. That frequency is blocked. It can't get through the veil. So my whole process here, the mission or whatever you want to call it, my assignment is to bring certain things to people who are ready to do something in their life that's not only meaningful for themselves, but is a great benefit for the people as a whole in the particular system where they might live. And I'll give you an example. Uh, I've been thinking about what somebody might encounter if they happen to want to go in and have a little chit chat with their local sheriff. And the chit chat can be very simply about things that the sheriff has already taken an oath of allegiance to uphold and defend, mainly to the Constitution and to the rights of the people. And of course, most of you have gotten an idea already that there's some things in this system that are 100% adverse to what I just said. Because if you don't put a plate on your car or carry some form of lizard reptilian commercial identification on you, you may be subjecting yourself to some difficult time, some penalties, maybe even jail time. So the simpleness of what I'm talking about right at the moment is we have things on the books in this in the room that's already been posted. You have some statutes. You have the California stuff, which is probably the best I've been able to find, along with the Title 18, Title 26, that's the Federal Criminal Code, which has specifically to identify what a commercial motor vehicle is all about. And it uses the term motor vehicle identified. It's the identification. And the way they laid it out is, as you should know by now, the federal government has no jurisdiction whatsoever inside a state, especially when it comes to the private sector. So that private sector is isolated, exempt, it's immune, and the federal government has no jurisdiction over it until it engages some kind of a commercial activity requiring a license, because all things that are affecting the public are not permission. You have to get permission to do that. You have a right to travel freely and privately, and you have a right to contract in any way, shape, or form you want privately. But you don't have a right to do it with the public at large, because that affects everybody. So these particular statutes I'm talking about, 1925 statutes that California is a very good example. They not only explain to you who is subject to the licensing statutes, but they also identify who is not. They don't. Not only do they make sure you understand that the California Department of Motor Vehicles is the licensing agency, but they also make sure that you understand that the Bureau, the taxing agency, Department of oh boy, what can I ever think of that agency? Anyway, it's the one. It, oh, excuse me, Casey. It's the one that has the obligation, the duty to issue exempt placards for all private vehicles. So, um, Board of Equalization. Okay, so that's in there. And the funny part about it is it's free, right by their own statute. And not only is it free, but it's a requirement by the statute that you have to go in and get that. If you're only operating in a private capacity, you don't want to put a commercial license on your car, because you're not doing anything commercial that would cause you to be regulated or controlled by the state, which is the state's job to regulate all commercial activity affecting the public. So this statute, which is, I may have said this story. Casey, you better not bite me. So this story comes to you from an actual event that I had with one of the local sheriff deputies in a private sit down, and I happened to have a copy of the statute with me, and I laid it on the table, and I said, "What do you think about this?" And he said, "Well, what is it?" I said, "Well, it's a statute, and if you don't mind reading, it's section 412 right there." And so he started reading, and of course, the first thing that caught his eye was a motor vehicle defined. And it was all about commercial activity and doing all this stuff on here. But halfway down the paragraph, it says, but does not apply. And it identifies the private side. And I don't care if you were transporting your kids to a private school, or you were transporting your employees to your place of business. Those are all private activities. And if you don't have that activity that you're involved with, the Board of Equalization has to issue you, upon your application, an exempt plaque for your vehicle. And that's the crazy part about all this, is that how is it that so many people operate in a private capacity, and yet here's this thing right in front of everybody's face, and nobody seems to want to engage the system to demand this exempt placard. And of course, I also know there's some other really sneaky things behind all this, because I had a real good friend of mine who was involved in a court action, where he he filed a suit against the police officer who stopped and gave him a ticket. He didn't have a license plate on his car and did all this stuff, and he went in and fought the case and did all of his briefing and everything, and he lost the case. And the reason is because, without him realizing it, he didn't have standing to bring an action to demand anything because he's just a resident. He was a resident of California. And the case and the ruling said that it's common knowledge. The state has jurisdiction over all residents. Well, if you might remember that little quote out of the 14th Amendment, it says that all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Oh, you're a residing person in the state. You're a residing U.S. citizen in the state. Well, that means you're subject to the jurisdiction of the executive power. And you don't have any rights except the civil ones that they might grant you. Like, oh, by the way, you can ride in the first grade classroom, but you know what? You can't drive that bus without a license. Oh, man. So resident is one of the key words in all of this. So if you get your head wrapped around this a little bit, this is not complicated.
Mason, we don't hear you. Are you talking still? Hello, Mason? Can you hear me?
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him too. I don't think he knows it. It shows that he's still here, but he's listening. He's muted. Let me see if I can unmute him.
I'm still here.
Here he is now.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either.
Okay, well, where did you lose me?
A couple minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Or at least a minute ago.
Okay. Well, did I get to the part about the first grade classroom?
No.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about that. The first grade classroom, for anybody that wants to listen to this, is so simple because when you show the first graders that they have a right to drive their tricycle and pull their wagon around the neighborhood without any signs on it, and the neighborhood all knows that you got a garden, and you got garden full in the back of your little wagon, and all of a sudden your neighbor comes out and says, "Hey, Johnny, yeah, hey, what do you got today?" Well, how did he know about your wagon and your food? Well, it was word of mouth. It went from one neighbor to the next, to the next, to the next, and all that. And so here's Johnny sitting here, and he said, "Yeah, I got all this stuff, and yeah, what can I do for you today?" And so they take a piece of fruit, they give him whatever it was that their agreement was, and he goes on. Well, there's no license required there. He's not affecting the whole country. He's not even affecting the state. In fact, he's just barely affecting his own little block where his neighbors are all living. And so there's no licensing, no requirements. And for those of you, can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who may not have looked into the libraries at technical definitions of specific words, there's one that I found very interesting. It was called at large. At large, L-A-R-G-E. And the reason I found that was because I was looking for the word at law, which is what all these attorneys, so-called lawyers, put on their door or on their cards about their practice, your attorney at law. And I'm like, oh, what the hell does this at law mean? When I found it, it was simple. It says according to the course of the common law. Really? So it's a common law thing. Well, are common law things in the private sector taxable? And the answer is not in this country. Because the citizens are the sovereigns here, you don't tax the citizens and their rights, only if they decide to engage in the public. So this little exercise is simple. And by the way, Johnny, if you decide you want to sell to the whole block and the other blocks around you, you might have to pay a license to get a sticker on your little car so the state or the county or the city can make sure you're not doing things that are dangerous to the public. You may be poisoning the food. We don't know, okay? But we have the right now to make sure that you don't do that. And so we can inspect you. We can tell you how much you can carry in your wagon because your wagon only carries so much weight, all this stuff. Well, that's the commercial side. But if you're not doing that, if it's private between you and your neighborhood, there's no regulations. Don't put up a sign. Don't advertise to the public. It's all private contracting. And just so you know, the further part of this is Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. The state has no power to involve or regulate contracts between the private sectors. They have no jurisdiction. Zero. Just like they have no power to coin money or use anything but gold and silver coin in the payment of debt. So don't try and give Johnny a Federal Reserve note. You might be complicit in the delinquency of a young man and be engaged in some kind of a criminal activity, which the Constitution is very plain about this, and so is the First Congress on the elements of coining money and regulating its value. So uh, this little exercise I'm talking about is nothing more than engaging your local sheriff and giving him the information to help him understand that you have the right and the statutes identify it. And if you've got that in your hand, there's also a lot of case law on the subject. One of them is not ex parte Frank Knowles. That's the other case. It's Henry Stork. I use this case as a really good example because when I was first involved in knocking on that door, uh, I must have been up to the Supreme Court a dozen times in this case. It's all a traffic case. It's when I busted the light at the corner up there with the bank. And I went to the library and I was looking up 12500. That's the DMV citation number and the code for driving without a license. And I went and I pulled up this whole volume of books called Deering's Annotated, and I'm looking under 12500 to see if there's a case. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I'm looking to see if there's a case in there dealing with some form of an exemption or the reason why this guy who got arrested and was in jail and was filing a writ of habeas corpus to get out, what made him think he had the right to an exempt placard, which according to him, and he makes the statements, why is it that all the rest of the people who are driving all over the place, they can get an exemption and I can't. I gotta get a license. Well, the court obviously told him why. He said, because you're affecting the public. You're a taxi cab driver. Uh, You're subject to the regulations of the commercial world in here. So that case, that's the funny part about it, after the guy finished with his writ and the court said, sorry, you're remanded, go back to jail. He was a taxi driver and he wanted an exemption. And they said, sorry, that's not how it works. So the next thing I know, I got another good friend of mine, and we were talking about this whole scenario. We went back down to the county law library, and went in there. I said, come on, I want to show you what I found. And so we went over to Deering's, and I went down to the numbered section, 12500, and opened up the book, and the whole page where the case was cited was gone. And it wasn't just the page was gone, they renumbered the book. So it's like, okay, guys, if you think these people aren't serious about hiding stuff, oh boy, they're masters at it. So we're at a time right now when all these little things are so simple in everybody's face. And the evidence we have is a mile long of our rights to this stuff. And the system is caving in as we speak. It's caving in. I think most of you heard that Trump rang the um, stock market bell this morning. Well, that was one of his little signs. It's about to happen, guys. And there's all kinds of stuff getting ready to explode into the real world, looking like we're in World War III. Those were a bunch of demonic buildings. I think there was 34 of them that are all get blown up. And so you got people running around hither and yon, scared all over the place. Oh my God, we're going to be dead tomorrow. Okay, well, okay, have fun with that, because this is all a big movie, guys. But it's unfortunate that most people aren't getting the picture, and they're missing the golden opportunity, and I say that literally, to do something in their life that's scary on its face, but it's the only thing in your existence that will build the strength in your spiritual body. There's no other way. You can't buy it. You can't pray for it. You can't worship over it. I don't care what you do. If you're unwilling to deal with yourself and your fears in this life, you're going to get another trip on the wheel. There ain't no other way. And if you think there is, then you let me know when you find the guy that can give you a free ride. I'll be right there with you, because I know there ain't no free ride. I already got my ticket, and it's very painful. So I don't think there's much else I can bring to the table at this particular point in time. And and I would love to hear from those, not necessarily in person. Once you have started a process, you're going to be able to tell those people around you, oh my God, this is what I did, and look what happened. Yeah, it's amazing. The judge actually recused himself from the bench, or the sheriff actually he admitted that he was in the wrong, and he would do what he could to help you get that exemption, because he has jurisdiction over every agency in the county. You remember this? He's the number one executive officer in the county that you live in. There's nobody above him but you, and you have the right to instruct him in how to go about making sure that your rights are secured. That's your job, your duty. And if you're afraid to do that, well, don't complain about your situation and the things that you've allowed in your life, because they're your problem and you created them. So the time is very short, man. You guys got to start standing up and doing something. Otherwise, there's no big deal. It's a free trip. You automatically get a return ticket. So that's about all I got for this evening. Anybody got any questions? I didn't mean to scare everybody off. Are you guys still there?
I think they are. There, we've had a fairly large group of people join the call, and I'm sure there's got to be some questions. Anybody want to join in and ask a question? Usually, our Jax has got a couple.
I think Arjax got all of hers just a little while ago before the call.
Oh, okay.
And believe me, once you start the process, I don't care who you are, don't matter. When you're interested in stepping up to the plate and engaging a system, we got all the information, we got all the evidence, we got all the law. Whatever it is you don't have or you don't think you have, all you got to do is start doing something, because the examples are on the links that are in this call. There's written documents on different things. And if you can't just look on the calls and find something, go down to your local law library or look on the internet and ask for a form for the county, uh, I don't know, Bureau of Land Management or whatever. I'm just paraphrasing now, but there's forms on the internet that you can get to do whatever it is you think you not need to do, like a notice and demand. There's no reason you can't do a notice and demand form to the county sheriff to show not only his authority, his allegiance, but to establish the specific statutes and the constitutional supporting authority that gives him the right to stop and or arrest a citizen of the state domiciled in his county for operating in his private capacity. Now, is that a scary question? It could be, but you can put it down on a piece of paper and then hand deliver it to the guy or call 911. Oh, man. That's about all I can reiterate here.
Well, is there anyone here that has been through this, or anyone that has any questions, any comments that y'all would like to make? If you'd like to speak, you can try unmuting yourself, and if that doesn't work, raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay. We don't have anybody. I don't see any hands raised. Nobody has any comments? Do you want to add anything else, Mason? See if you bring about any comments or any questions?
Well, I could have a long talk with my chickens, and they're pretty tentative. When they get hungry, they know where the hen house is. When the sun goes down, they know where the hen house is. So
Yeah.
I just it befuddles me to know how many people are on this planet that are afraid of the system, and yet are afraid to walk towards the one place and the remedy in their life where the remedy is sitting there waiting for you. So, like I said, if you're not on board now, never fear. You'll get another trip on the wheel, and that other the trip that's coming for you, you're not going to have any recall of this conversation. You're going to only have emotional feelings that are a whole lot worse because you didn't deal with it this time. And it's okay because it's all part of the growing process. And just so everybody knows, this little exercise we're involved here has got nothing to do with financial gain or power or control. This is all about giving people the opportunity to wake up, stand up, and become part of the greater consciousness that you're all going to have to deal with sooner or later, whether you like it or not. And now is the best time, and it's waning. So that's about all I can interject here.
I have a question. You said that Trump rang the bell, and that was the start of something.
Yeah, he started the stock market this morning. It was
Or well,
also a
besides
signal.
that, yeah. What is that? What does that mean? That he? I mean, it seems to me it was a bigger thing than him just starting the stock market.
I was going to tell you, but you kept talking.
Oh, go ahead then. You
Yeah,
got the floor.
it was it was an indicator that the end was in play. The financial world is caving in. And where did I hear that? A long time ago. But there are little pieces along the way that, the people that are awake, aware, and have engaged in the system to some degree, there's a lot of little pearls that have been laid out for a lot of people, but most people, they don't even get what the heck's going on. And they listen to all of the left-hand side news and a lot of the stuff from the White Hats too that are intentionally intended to confuse the situation, intentionally. And all it's doing is it's singling out those particular people who may be slightly awake, who understand why things have to go the way they're going. Because in order to wake up enough people in the minds of whoever it is out there that's controlling all of this, they have to scare people enough so that they think they're going to remember how terrible these times were and not have to go through it again, which is kind of the opposite of where I'm coming from.
Okay. Well, I thank you for going over that a little bit because I didn't really
Yeah.
realize what that him ringing that bell meant.
Just another thing closer to the Big Bang.
You also mentioned to me about there were those 34 sites where that were going to get blown up,
Yeah, there's 34
and
satanic buildings on the planet that are already slated for destruction.
yeah, I've heard of some of those. What do you have any indication of when that's going to happen?
No, that's one of those events. It's just like him ringing the bell. I didn't know when it was going to happen. Everybody's trying to decide when is the EBS system going to go off? When is the stock market going to crash? Uh, when is World War III going to commence? And there's a whole bunch of these little things that are all lined up that have been talked about over and over and over many different times over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. And if you're paying attention, you realize that there is a movie. and it is under control. And the whole idea was for the Trump organization and the spiritual forces that are behind all of this to get many people awake as possible before there's no longer an opportunity to wake up. You're just going to go back to sleep again. And I don't mean that by saying you're not going to be here, but that's an inevitable thing for people that don't wake up. So there's no other way to get around it.
How do you feel about the number of people that are awake? I mean, do you think there's a good number, or do you think that number is really small or big, or what do
I
you
I
feel
I
about that?
wouldn't I wouldn't even have a feeling about it, and I'll tell you why. Because I've spent my whole life involved in the very things that I've been telling people about. And the number of people that I actually saw that were willing to stand there with me and do something, I can count them on one hand. So what does that say about the universe? The universe knows, and it's not interested in people wanting to help and doing nothing about it. Because you can't help anybody until you help yourself. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of the human element, and it's the process that every soul must go through in order to acquire some level of mastership. And there's a whole group out there that those of us who have engaged the system know about and have actually had interrelations with. But they're not something that you can just stick your hand on a telephone and dial up help me, and they're just going to pick up the phone, because that's not how it works. And they're not interested in anything that the lower consciousness are involved in, because they're not ready to take a step that would challenge them to get them into a next state up. They're just not. And nobody's going to come out and jump off the end of a bridge just to show you that they know how to fly, even though they may know how. There's been people that tried this kind of stuff over history, and there's stories about it, and it's like, okay, so what did they learn? Well, the particular person that did it may have learned something, but all the people watching, they got nothing. They just got a movie. So if you're not ready to stand up and do something to scare yourself, and for the benefit of the universe, because we're all involved here. We all have responsibilities in this little process. And as we grow, the universe grows, and it all goes through a complete metamorphosis from one end to the other. And it's all going to come back around for all those that didn't get it, no matter how you went about it or didn't go about it. You get to do it. Sooner or later, you're going to come to it. You got no choice.
I honestly think there's a lot of people out there that see what is going on and understand that it is wrong. A lot of stuff is wrong, and they don't really know what to do, and they might not have heard. I think that they do see, though, that things are wrong, and that they are hoping that Trump is going to take care of it.
Well, they're not. Trump's not going to take care of nothing, because he
Yep.
can't give you
That's what I'm
enlightenment.
hearing from you. Yeah.
He's
That's
responsible for
exactly what I'm
himself.
hearing from you, that he's not going to do it, that we have to do it ourselves. It's something
That's
we
it.
have to do.
We're the army. If we don't stand up, I don't care what he does. You got to be able to stand up in front of all this stuff and do something that causes the change to take place that he's presenting to everybody. Yeah, we don't need a banking system. Well, why is that? Well, we already have a system that doesn't need a bank, period, because it was founded on lawful, constitutional, energetic, energy substances, gold and silver. That was the nature of it. And it's got medicinal properties as well. So it isn't just some piece of metal in the dirt. And if you think it isn't worth anything, why do the reptilians try to steal all of it? They didn't do that for no reason. So if you can't pick something in your life that you just know isn't right, if you can't walk into a solution that's designed for all of us, then it's okay, because those that are ready to go will, and those that aren't ready will come back and do it again. I can say that 1,000 times, and it's not going to sink in to anybody who's not willing to take a step to find out if I'm telling them the truth or not. because I can't do it for you. I can't give you the walk. You gotta do it yourself. So stand there and be afraid. Don't engage the system. Don't engage the sheriff. Don't engage your bank or your mortgage company. Don't do any of that. And I'll tell you what you're going to get. Nothing. And you'll be in the same boat next time around, only worse. Because every time you come back, the energy that drives you to face your things of your creation gets stronger until you can't avoid it. Why do you think I'm standing here? I can't avoid it. It was all in my face. I had no place to run. And I knew it. And when that comes, when you finally realize and understand the consequences for the karmic experiences that everybody has to deal with, and you may have missed an opportunity, I don't know, but only you will know. I didn't get it all right the last time I was here,
What
and I'm
what
working
was the
I'm
what
working
was the
myself
first
silly.
thing? What okay. What was the first thing that hit you that made you step out and say, I've got to do this?
My father, okay, I'll tell you the story. My dad, during my growing up period, he was a very controlling individual, and he always had something very negative to say about me in relationship to his dad. And he made it pretty pointed. He said, "Yeah, you're just like my father. He did this, you did that, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff." And so finally, um, I said, "Well, what the heck is going on here?" And by this time, I'd gotten married, had a couple of kids, bought my first house, working in my first really solid job, and getting along just great. Okay, and my dad, he'd come over and we'd play golf and we'd do all kinds of things together, but there was always this little bit of a rub, and he never could explain it, and I had nothing to add to the problem because I didn't know what the heck he was complaining about because I had nothing to do with his dad. I was born after he died. So one day we were having dinner, and the lady that was with in the group that I joined, we were in the kitchen and she's cooking and stuff, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and these are how things happen, especially with what you might call people who are called seers. You know, they get impressions in life about certain things that they're involved with, and they have a duty too, an obligation to whatever it is they've been called to do. And in her case, she was one of those seers who could, in a moment of need, if it was needed, say something to somebody who they might be close to. And we were pretty close. And we were talking about some stuff, and all of a sudden she just looked at me and she says, "Huh, oh, you were your dad." Or no, you were she said, "You were your grandfather." And I'm like, "Oh, crap. Well, my grandfather was my dad's dad, okay? That means he was, I was his son in a past life." And I take that back. I was his dad in a past life. He was my son. Now I'm his son, okay? And I'm like, oh my God. All of these little pieces to our relationship for almost 25 years at that point came full circle on me. And I'm looking at all these little events and all the things he said and all the stuff he tried to get me to do and all this. It all related right back to only one thing, the relationship that he and I had as father and son in our previous lifetime. And I'm like, I was blown away. So it's like, okay, well, whatever this is about, crazy stuff. So one thing led to another. Finally, one day, he said, Michael, you got to come with me. I want you I want to introduce you to somebody. And I'm like, okay. And because of our relationship, because he was always browbeating me and beating me down and all this stuff, because of our previous lifetime, I was a real twit with him. And he said, no, you're gonna be glad that you made this acquaintance. You know? Okay. So he takes me to the house, his house. We go upstairs, and he says, look, you see all these books here on the shelf? I said, yeah. What about them? He said, well, I think it would be to your advantage if you would pick one, whatever one you want, and read it. My dad was he was pretty heavy into the not the occult, but he was he followed one gentleman who was a very lively, active participant in certain activities when it comes to soul travel and things like that. And so and he said, "Come on, man, just do me a favor, will you? Just pick one." So I was pretty adamant I didn't want to do it, but I decided, okay, I'll pick one. So I picked it. I read the book, and my life changed at that point because there were things that brought up in me that I knew had already been involved with in previous times. I had no idea about reincarnation at that point, didn't even have a consideration it possible. But all of a sudden, I began to get imprints, impressions, and other things in my life that I knew were of my making and that I was responsible in more ways than I could even imagine. So I started doing the exercises and following the group, particular individual that was in charge of it, Paul Twitchell. And one thing led to another, and finally, I went through a couple of initiation processes, which, as far as I was concerned, was okay, whatever. And I began to have these little impressions about lifetimes in other places and other responsibilities. And finally, I got to the point where I got this inner voice that was connected, and I used to have little talks with one of the masters, and he told me some little things like, yeah, you got to quit smoking, you got to quit drinking, you got to do these other things, blah, blah, blah. And I knew they were right because what I was doing was detrimental to myself, my own health, and people around me. So I finally got a handle on that stuff, and one day in our conversation, which I was having during my contemplation, I said, well, what's the deal? What am I going to have to be involved with? And all he said was, don't worry, you'll know. The time will come and you'll have to step up. Uh, wow, okay. That was all I got, nothing more. Well, I don't remember the timeline now as far as the time of that event and when I got called. I got a call from my CPA. And CPA, what's that well-known CPA company out there? H&R Block. And anyway, he calls me. He says, well, I hate to tell you this, but you owe $2,000 on your income tax this year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That was in 1980, okay? What do you mean I owe 2 grand? He said, well, he said, it really isn't your fault. It just so happens that they raised the brackets and you moved up into the next high bracket. So you owe them now another 2 grand this year. Something inside me just went click, and the other part of it went, oh man, now what am I going to do? Uh, well, it just so happens a very close friend of mine there in the company where I was working, he came up to me that very week. He said, hey, Michael, he said, I'm going to a meeting this weekend. Would you like to come and join me? And I said, well, what's this about? He said, well, it's a group. I find out later it's a group called your Heritage Protection Association, for those of you who may have an inkling, and a guy named Armand Kondo. And so I went to the Saturday meeting, and they sat there, and I learned all about banking. And I'm like, oh my God. And I got some books on the subject, but see, I was having all kinds of insights at the same time. I said, where the hell did I learn all this crap? I knew it from someplace, but I couldn't put my hand on it. So as time goes by, I filed my exemption W-4s at the company I was working for, exempt, because I knew I wasn't a taxpayer at that point, because I wasn't an officer, employer, or elected official in D.C., and I knew I wasn't a U.S. citizen by that time. And so it's like, okay, I filed my exemptions. Well, guess what? Here comes the IRS through the payroll department, and they started garnishing my wages. And pretty soon here come the FTB. They were garnishing my wages. And there was a point in the middle of all that where I was taking home like $75 a week. And I had a full job. I was a supervisor at that time, at a 56-man crew. And everything in my life was already put in play. Had the boats, the cars, the house, the mortgage payments, the whole bit. And now I got this snake that's living in my doorway and bites me every time I look like I'm going to leave. And so I'm like, oh boy. Well, I put together my first suit against the U.S. government and the Internal Revenue Service. And that's where my education began. And I began to get insights about things to put down on paper and then I would go to the library and get confirmation of it. And that was the one case in my life where not only did I ultimately lose my all fully paid for freehold in Tahunga, but I also gained the knowledge that showed me how corrupt this system really was. I didn't have a real good feel for that until after that whole experience. So here I am now. I'm sitting on the threshold of being terminated and standing at the gate, ready to walk out the gate. And by the way, that court case, what it did was it showed me where the writ of error, which I mentioned to RJ earlier, it's a very important writ because it's a writ of right and it deals with the common law side of our system, not the English, but the American common law side. And that's the remedy when the system has violated your rights to your life, your liberty, or your property. And any one of those things, everyone on this call has had an issue with at some point in your life. So that was the remedy if you filed the proper paperwork, and I had, and I did a subpoena ducis tecum right to the U.S. Attorney General's office. And the subpoena was for him to appear and produce a specific document that I'm signed, knowingly and intelligently, that made me an officer, employee, or elected official of the District of Columbia or a citizen of the United States. And the judge in the case, Alice Marie Stotler, who's dead now, she denied the subpoena. I'm like, wait a minute, you can't deny a subpoena. That was a jurisdictional subpoena dealing with specific issues, giving you the power and authority over me, my private property, and everything about me. What are you telling me you're not going to issue it? And she said, no, I'm not going to issue it, but I'm going to, you can't file any more paperwork in this court without my permission. I got a vexatious litigant order slammed on me. Well, if you think that wasn't a fun time for me, I got news for you. Here I am, and and I'm being run over like a truck. So, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what this call is. I'm gonna hang up on it and call back. Okay, so where I'm standing at the gate, they're getting ready to walk me out, and I just kind of looked up in the sky and I said, well, I said, it's a funny thing, I could run this company. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, one of the familiar voices came on, and it said, nah, you're overqualified. And I'm like, oh, thanks a lot. So that's where the rest of my experience is without employment of any kind, doing what I do, carpentry and a lot of other specialized trades, and going through losing that house to the IRS, which they ultimately took it. Took them 12 years to get me out of there. And then moved into another house, and ultimately the bank got that one. Another hit in the pants. And then moved in with my present wife, and her family managed to figure out how to boot us out of there. And so we're living in a forlorn place up in a very isolated area in Nevada, in a friend's house who's in the hospital, sick and dying. And we're just working on getting through the process that's coming to us very rapidly, dealing with all of the funds and everything else that's going on. So, and I get this assignment, which I've had most of my life, that didn't expose itself for the public's consumption until I ran into another gentleman that I'm not even going to mention on this call. And that led me to where we are now, and the information that's being given out, which is, it's an open book. Everybody has access to it now. All you got to do is pick up the reins and figure out which way to turn the cart.
Well, wow, Mason, that was a story.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that was only
that's your
that was
life
only
too.
half of it. That was only
Oh,
half of
okay.
it. Now I
Okay.
could have spent another half an hour, but I'm not going. That doesn't need. It's already been told already. So
But
if you guys are
but it's a lot.
wondering what
It's a
this is
lot
about,
that happened to you. A lot that happened to you that motivated you to do what you did.
but see, what I'm trying to give you guys is this: my previous lifetimes are all encompassing when it comes to all this stuff that I've had to deal with. I'm the only guy responsible for it. Nobody else did it. I did. And so all these little pieces to this puzzle, which one of them is going to be very difficult for most people, is being able to forgive themselves when they finally wake up to the reality of the things they're now looking at and dealing with that's coming to everybody and what part they played in it in some previous lifetime. Because I'll tell you what, it's going to be pretty horrific. And, there's no way I can give anybody a sense of immunity from what's coming. You're just going to have to look at it, deal with it, and decide where you want to point the finger. Because there isn't anything existing in this universe that every one of us has not either previous to this point or from this point forward will not have to deal with in some way or another. You can't escape life. And that's the growth process. And you can't become one of the masters until you've accomplished the very thing that most people are unwilling to face, yourself.
Well, I'm taking notes because I feel like I need to get moving.
You can listen to the
Unfortunately.
replay.
Yeah, I will.
And you got my number.
I do. I do. That's true.
Uh,
But I still like to
uh,
take notes. That's part of my learning. It's the way
that's
I
good.
learn is to take notes.
Excellent.
So, anyway, does anybody have anything that they would like to ask Mason or any comments about your own life and or anything you're facing? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to say tonight?
Too scary, man.
Yeah, I think everybody's afraid. I know
Well, you know what?
I know
You
I
know what?
am.
If I gave you the other half hour of what I had to deal with, you think what I told you up to this point was scary. You ain't heard nothing.
I'm sure of it. I mean, all of the stuff that you've been through, going to the Supreme, all the way up to
But
the Supreme Court
but
with some
listen.
of your cases.
But the most important part of all of this is that the minute I put my foot on this path to deal with the most powerful rotten system in the planet, I began to acquire a level of protection I can't even explain to you. There are things that happen in your life that you won't be able to find out why because it just happens and there's no rhyme or reason to it, but it may have been something that you would have been in deep trouble, or somebody might have done something to you personally, or you may have lost something going on in your life, okay? And yet all these things, they came and went. You didn't have to deal with them because you've been protected. When you get thrown out of a piece of property with, we'll say, 50 animals and 100 years of family belongings, and you only got one road to get on, and you don't know what's going to be at the other end of it. Okay? Now you think about that for a second. That's a pretty heavy hit. And everything you did because you were told that was what you needed to do, and you did them all. And so all of a sudden you find yourself completely protected in a protected zone under the protection of who knows how many angels and other masters that are out there, making sure that our surroundings are completely and totally safe and in harmony with our attitudes about life, because we're willing to stand up to the things in life that most people are scared to death to face. And when you get to that point, you're going to have whole different attitude about life. You know, I can't even begin to tell you what it feels like to get up in the morning and have a complete and total sense of absolute serenity and freedom from the entire demonic world as we've come to know it and is yet to be exposed. So if you can't get your head wrapped around that one little comment, I don't know what else to tell you.
Well, I have to say that I think that what you wake up to every day is perfect. I mean, you're free and you've got all of your animals and your food and you're growing your own food and you're living a very free life, and I think that's fabulous.
Well, and that freedom is not as free as some people would like to see it. But that's not the point. The point is we know why we're here and what we're doing and where we're headed. How many people know that and can put their
I
hand
don't
on it?
I don't think that there's a large number. I don't think so.
I
I
don't
think that
either.
they know things are wrong, but they don't know where we're headed and what they
And
need to
they're
do.
and they're afraid to step towards it. See,
Yeah.
you're never going to know what it's like to be free until you take a step towards the things you fear that have you entrapped. You're never going to know.
Yeah.
You can talk about it till the cows come home. I can give you story after story after story, but if you're not willing to step towards your fear, you're never going to learn. You can't. It's impossible. I can't give it to you. I can't teach you what I've experienced. Only you can do that.
I know there's still a lot of people that don't know that
I'll tell you, and
uh,
I'll give you one more
they're
piece of this whole
enslaved.
thing.
They're basically enslaved, is what it is. It's not that
Yeah,
they're
they
not
are.
free; they're enslaved.
And all of these teachings that I've watched and listened to over the course of my life, uh, there's one very profound. He's not the only one, but he's one very profound example of what happens in the event that you finally wake up to what your shortcomings might be, and you have to pay the consequences for them. And in doing that, you attain the very freedom that you've been searching for your entire existence. And I'm not even going to say his name. You can all picture this event.
So you're not going to tell us what the event is.
You should know already. What day is coming up, okay? And that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, well, oh, that day. Okay. The
Okay?
25th is the day that you're talking about.
I don't know.
I think that's the day you're talking about.
Okay, if you think that's it, then that's good enough.
That am I wrong?
I'm not going to say one way or the other.
I
Why
know.
don't you go on the internet and find out yourself? See,
Yeah.
these are the little things in life that you're going to have to learn how to get your own answers.
No,
Because
I
just
do
because
believe
I
that
say something, that doesn't make it true. The
I
only way
do
you're going
believe
to
that
get
the
the
day
truth,
that we're celebrating is absolutely the wrong day.
okay, then if you know that to be a fact based on your intuition, then that's the way it is. And I'm not going to argue with you.
But the problem is I don't know what the day is. I've
Doesn't
heard it's in
matter.
the fall
Doesn't
or
matter.
yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You know who I'm
Okay.
talking about. So that's all that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can give you a clue.
What?
Give you a clue of what day it is.
Okay.
Let's try 9/11.
Well, that's a good day.
Oh, wow.
Oh 03, wasn't it?
N-
3 BC, 9/11, 3 BC.
Not 2001.
No, 3 BC. It's
Before
actually,
yeah. That's
it's,
like AD and BC for the
yeah,
time dates.
it's actually Feast of Trumpets. If you study the biblical feasts, he was born on the Feast of Trumpets.
That's why
I
Trump
do
was going to
remember
give
hearing
the
that.
seven
That's
trumpets.
you're right.
Hmm.
That year, it happened to be September 11th in
Wow.
the Gregorian calendar.
Hmm. Okay, but what's that got to do with you getting out there and fighting the system you helped create?
Mason, I'm out there. I'm on the front line.
Yeah, you know it. I know it. Well, when are other
You're my
people going to hear
general.
about it?
You're my general.
Okay. So, all you lieutenants and all you whatever, let's
How about privates?
let's get
We're way down.
okay. You can be that too if you want. Let's get busy
Yeah.
and do some. Look it. It doesn't matter how much you do or how long it takes you to do it. Everything you do involving yourself in this system, as opposed to the things you've been given that you don't have to do, but you have a right to refuse. Everything you do creates just another little a pimple of muscle upon one of those little muscles on your body. In this case, it happened to be your spiritual muscle. So however little you do is okay. It's just another step. And the more you take, the stronger you get. And the more things you see, and the more help you get. It's an unbelievable situation, but you can't give it to somebody. They have to earn it. They have to do it.
You know what I saw when I started researching all this and became enlightened, I guess, of all the fraud and the lies and everything? I saw this, and I still see my walk as a greater exodus coming out of slavery. They stole our birthright, no different than what Egypt did to the Israelites.
Okay? Are you back again to get retribution for that?
No, no, I just feel spiritually my drive is um, a greater exodus coming out of Babylon.
Okay. All right. But who's going to gain from that? If it's not you, then who? And it's
I
based on the
guess,
things, it's all based on the things you're willing to do in this lifetime.
right, right.
So you can't put your finger somewhere else. If it's not pointing in the mirror back at you, then you're pointing in the wrong direction. So that's where you're going to learn to have extreme forgiveness for yourself. Because once you get a picture of all the things that you did in all your past lives, you're not going to be happy with yourself. I'll tell you what, it's a pretty hard hit. But when you finally get that, when you finally develop the stamina to be able to look in the mirror and point the finger right at the problem, which is you, and you can't pass judgment on anybody else. How many times have you ever heard that phrase? You know, he who is without sin can cast the first stone. Did you ever hear that one?
Yep.
That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Because most people, they can't look in the mirror and say, I've never done anything wrong. You have no idea where you come from. You have no idea what you've done. And when you finally get the picture, you're not going to be happy about it. But guess what? If you finally come to that realization that you are the creator of your universe and everything you see in your life that you don't like, you've been part of it. And it's the only one that can fix it is you. And you can't do it by hanging somebody else for your crimes. I didn't know this was going to turn into a ministerial situation. Uh,
Well, I think it had to eventually.
eventually, there's no other way.
Yeah.
I am that I am.
Yep. And you're karmically bound to what you've done. And you can't get away from it. And only you can fix it. And the only fix is to forgive yourself and develop that neutral place where you're not passing judgment on anybody else because of what they may have done. I don't care if it's right in front of your face. That's a hard one. And I've seen so many people on so many different channels in the internets and all that all they can think about is how much they're going to enjoy watching all these people die because of all these terrible things they did. And I'm going, oh boy, okay, well, have fun with that. Because the day will come when you'll be looking in that mirror and you'll be seeing who also is involved in all kinds of stuff that bad, and maybe and even worse. So quit pointing the finger. Judge not, lest ye be judged. You've heard that one? I mean, all these are biblical statements that come out of the book that most people, that's gospel to them. I'm like, okay, that's all cool, but how many people actually believe they've been here before? And how many are willing to accept the fact that they've been so many different things that they can't even begin to understand how deeply entrenched they are in this whole world history from the time they became whatever they entered in as to now. And we're all guilty. There's no such thing as innocence in this system or in this planet or in this universe. All the poor kids that have been who knows what You know, do I agree with all that? No, but I know why, and I can see why, and I understand the principles behind the stuff that's happened there. And when you look at the migration of soul from its infancy, from its very beginning, up through all the different incarnations that every soul has been through to get to a certain point, you're going to begin to have a really good idea, if not see the truth about it, of how many different things each and every one of us have been through that are now being shown, now being exposed. That's what's coming. And we're all going to give an opportunity to look in that mirror and ask the question, have I ever been involved in this? Have I ever been a victim in that? Have I ever been the cause of something like that? You can ask all these questions. You're going to know if they're true or not. And you'll get it if you did or not. And if you did, well, all the more reason for you to consider just forgiving yourself and quit passing judgment on anything. The lessons of life are not easy. And they're not easily learned, and they're not quickly addressed. It takes a lot of time and a lot of lifetimes to go through all the stuff we've been through already. So for those that may have an inkling about this golden age, I don't know if we're going to be able to live 1,000 years or more. I'm pretty sure the golden age is a little longer than that, but I know there are masters up there that are watching this whole thing, and they're involved, and they're willing to help anybody who's willing to step up and do something. But you got to be the asker. You got to be the one wanting to help, and the only way you get it is by stepping forward. You can yell and holler and scream all you want. You're just yelling into the ether, and it's just sitting there waiting for you to do something. So, whew,
Mason,
yes.
do you believe in med beds?
Um, I'm kind of neutral at this point, and I'll tell you why. Um, I know there have been devices that have been created out there. There's one called a Rife machine, if you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
I
And I know several people that have it, and some that have used it and had some results in certain areas. I was also involved in something with my wife before she passed that had to do with frequencies. And of course, there's no changing who and what you are, as long as you don't change what you say, think, and eat. So I don't care what you want to hook yourself to, med bed or otherwise. Spacecraft makes no difference. If you're going to think you're going to go into that med bed and come out some spiritually enlightened master, you got another thing coming.
no. I
So
I
so if you got a mindset that you can heal yourself, and it doesn't mean that you're just going to all of a sudden one day like turning lead into gold. It's possible. I think somebody else did it. There was some witnesses to the event, but how many people can do it? Because I got news for you. If the lizards, the reptilians, the bankers could do that, they'd have all the lead too.
well,
But they only use lead for dropping it in the water and catching fish. So all of these things that you're talking about, these electronic magicry and everything else, magic tricks, if you want to call them that, I'm not saying they don't work. And I'm not saying it isn't possible that they might grow limbs or teeth or whatever. I mean, hey, I'd be willing to give it a try, but it ain't going to be because I haven't done all the other things in my life that were necessary to create the environment that would give the universe the window of opportunity to replace some of the things in my life that, yeah, I was a creator of it, and I know when and why and how come. All right, but I'm also looking at, well, how am I going to fix this stuff and get it replaced so that I can move on in a more cohesive manner with respect to my environment and the people around me and the other things that are going on in my life. And if I find that the med bed is a viable remedy for that, yeah, I may give it a shot because I'm not going to discount anything in life when it comes to the future. And everybody, you get an attitude about things that you think don't work, don't worry, they won't.
well, I mean, I don't have an attitude that the things that are possible won't work. I do believe that there are things that are out there that are possible that are being held back, um, including a predominance of the pharmaceuticals that are really poisoning us and meant to harm us, or just to maintain uh, our our situation, just to maintain a situation in our lives, not to heal us, but to maintain um, our situation pharmaceutically, and not to heal us.
Right.
So I do think that has been a predominant thought pattern in most of our lives in the medical field. But I do think that I I hear rumors that there are healing practices that can be exalted and come to light, and I just wonder if they're possibly true. I don't know of any, but I hear rumors of them, and I dream of them, and I
I'll
need
just give
them.
you this. I'll give you this one little pearl. All things are possible for those who believe.
Well,
Now, if you don't believe something is going to work, then don't worry about it. It won't.
yeah,
If you give it to consideration that it's possible, and you do certain things in your life that will enhance that thing to work on you, you got a better chance than the person who's just sitting there, not sure, not and wondering, but doing nothing to change their body's ability to heal itself.
yeah.
Because your body's a pretty powerful thing, but it's
W-
only as good as what you put in it and the words that come out of it.
Well, that's true, but
So when you get a handle on that, don't think about things in life as being some kind of a negative or a positive. Just think of them as being an opportunity for you to decide whether it's right for you. But don't miss the most important part. You can't drink soda pop and eat hamburgers and all the other garbage that's been put in our face for our whole lifetime and
yeah.
think you're going to be healthy at the end of it.
Well, that's true, and I mean, but
So
we all know that we have a finite existence.
that's not the point. You don't know how finite your existence is. You're a forever being. And if you can't get that to your brain,
Well,
then
I yes, I know
you've
that
already created a timeline that you're not
we're
going to be
eternal.
around,
We're
but you'll be back.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. So
I
and
may
and
be
the next time
back, or
back,
I may go to another star, but
whatever. The
yeah,
point is, you can't just disappear into nothing.
right.
And you've already developed a consciousness, and you're working on increasing that consciousness, and you're learning how to be neutral in the things in your life that seem to be very, oh, sometimes not so fun.
No,
And especially when it comes to physical things.
yeah,
And you're not the only one, because everybody goes through something in their life that is of a physical nature, and they may or may not ever learn why in this particular lifetime they had to do that. But the answers are always waiting for those that are ready, willing, and able to learn from their experiences.
yeah.
So the
That's
med
true.
bed is another opportunity, just like the right machine, just like there's all kinds of herbs, remedies. Water fasting probably one of the cleanest processes to help the body recover from all of its indiscretions. But it's up to the individual, and you'll know when the time comes whether what you're going to do is right for you or not.
Yeah.
And that's all. That's all. It's important. It's about you. It ain't about anybody else. Nobody else.
Yep. Yep.
So
Okay.
yeah, keep your eye peeled and change some of your the things in your life that you know may be attributing to problem. And there are things that may be out there that I think I found some interesting stuff. We might talk privately about it. But anyway, that's kind of my take on the whole thing. Any other questions?
To speak, all you need to do is unmute yourself. Okay, no comments, no questions. I'll give you another second or two. Go ahead.
Fun too. Hmm.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any more, Mason, thank you so much for going through all that last stuff that you went through, because I think that's going to help a lot of people to figure out that I think I need to do something. At least
Yeah.
I hope that that's what that'll do.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily hope about any of this stuff because I've already lived it, and I know why some people procrastinate. I've already been down that road, and there's nothing fun about it until you want to look at yourself real closely and ask the question: Or you want to grow, or you want to die and come back with a veil drawn again? Because that's your remedy if you decide to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Grow now, or maybe do this again.
Yep. Not maybe.
Okay. You will do this again. Okay.
You got no choice. Yeah, you're not going to get the mastership by doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you sure enlightened us a lot tonight on your journey, and I appreciate that. It helps us understand, you know, what we need to do, and where we are right now, and yeah, and the journey that we still have to take.
Yep. And the help is there for anybody who's willing to step up.
Yep. We have a friend in Mason, you guys. We do.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out the call, and I do thank you so much, Mason, for everything you shared tonight, and for everybody being here. We appreciate it so much. And
Well, it's my
this call
pleasure.
is being recorded, and you will be able to listen to it. It's on our YouTube channel, and I'll put that YouTube channel uh, down in the room, so that anytime you want to come and you go listen to some of the calls, you can go to that YouTube channel, and they'll all be there.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well,
So,
good night,
so
everybody.
I thank y'all so much, and we'll see you again next Friday.
Okay.